Thanks for joining. I'm Kyle, and I'll be walking us through today's session of reaching the right audience, advertising built on trusted data. If you're in advertising, I'm sure you felt the pressure from two sides, one of them being the demand for stronger performance proof, and the other is the tightening expectations for privacy. And I'm here to tell you that you can have both, and you don't have to sacrifice data integrity in the process either. I'll show how Precisely PlaceIQ helps brands do three things really well, which is reach the right audiences in a privacy compliant way, understand what's working while campaigns are live, and connect exposure to real world outcomes like store visits. All right, really quick intro about myself, and then we'll jump into the demo. Hi, I'm Kyle. I am the reporting and analytics manager at Precisely PlaceIQ. I spent the last few years pretty deep in location and campaign analytics, doing things like understanding foot traffic patterns, how audiences behave before and after exposure, and how to translate location intelligence into outputs that teams use today. For today's roadmap, there are three things, and they're pretty straightforward. First, I'll walk you through the place intelligence metrics dataset and what's inside of it, and how you can use it to understand places and the visitation patterns that you care about. Next, we'll take what we learned and turn it into an audience, and then be able to push that to a platform for targeting and planning. Finally, we'll look at the campaign results using visit stream product, so you can connect what happened in the real world back to the campaign and get clear performance signals. If you only remember one thing from today, and it's this, we're going to go from insight to activation to proof. And we're doing all three using privacy safe foundation. All right, let's jump into it. I'll start with the PIM view, which is the place intelligence metrics, and then I'll call out what to look for as we go. It takes noisy event level movement signals and distills them down into a privacy safe aggregated view at the place level. So you're not really dealing with raw pings of visitation, you're dealing with an analytics ready output tied to real world locations. It covers about 4 million plus POIs and goes beyond just the simple visitation counts and includes things like visits by day, day part, demographic contributions, and travel behavior. I won't be able to show you all the bells and whistles of this dashboard, but I can at least point out very important or interesting things that stood out to me in this example, which is automotive dealerships. First graph we see is visits by day, and as I siphon through different chains, we could see that certain chains do well compared to the category as a whole. As you can see, the blue line, which is the chain, may be above or below the green line, and one chain that really stands out to me is Honda. And the reason being is because Honda does better than the category as a whole across most days within the last 90 days. As we scroll down to see more, we could also see number of places, number of visits, and compare them to the category as a whole. As we continue scrolling, we look at the demographics, and we have attributes for age, income, education, carrier, and device. Give you an example, in this first view of age, we see that for the ages 18 to 34, automotive dealerships and Honda are about equal at 25% of its visitors. What I'll do here is I'll just change this to the index view just because it's a little bit easier to see where each attribute over indexes for Honda versus the category as a whole. The way to read this is Honda, which is the orange bars, represent the different attributes where Honda just does better in comparison to the category. So more of Honda visitors are between the ages of 18 to 44 compared to the category. One thing that really stood out to me and was surprising is that Honda does better for incomes above 100K. As we continue scrolling down, we will see that the behaviors, which include metrics like day of week, hour of day, and even same day shopping or same week shopping to certain chains. These look pretty similar for Honda versus the category as a whole. So nothing too pressing to point out. And then finally, we have the dwells. So seeing which areas people are coming from, whether it's coming from work or coming from home. So let's explore this map and select DMA to try to analyze. In this case, let's choose Houston, Texas. If you scroll down to the bottom view, we can see how far people are traveling for both daytime, which is where they work, and home, which is where they live. As we hover over, we can see that Honda visitors travel pretty far compared to the automotive dealership. In this case, the visitors will travel 13 miles from work to go to a Honda dealership, and from home, it's kind of similar, where more visitors come from 11 miles to go to a Honda versus the category as a whole. So we're learning a couple of things here. One of them being Honda over the past 90 days is just doing better compared to the category. We also know that more Honda visitors have high income, which is above 100K. We also know that in the Houston area, many of their visitors are willing to travel compared to the category. So now we are on the second phase, which is activation. This is the audience discovery dashboard, where we'll be able to build an audience and push it to a platform of our choosing. Now let's build an audience based on what we just learned in the place intelligence metrics around the Houston area for Honda. We'll start by looking at the look back. I'll keep this at 90 days, but you can decide to drop it down to as low as 7 days. For target, we'll add Honda here. And for market, we will add in Houston. If you remember, visitors to the Houston DMA also are willing to travel pretty far, from 11 to 15 miles to even 20 miles. So let's expand this out to adjacent markets like Austin. Let's do San Antonio and a couple of others. For frequency, we could select if you want to have only devices that visited a high amount of time over the 90-day period, or even be more exact, but we will keep this pretty open and we'll leave this out. For deep part and data and demographics, we'd also add a stipulation and filter there, but let's keep this out because there's a section below that will help us understand what each does to the overall audience size. It's always important to keep in mind the audience size. Right now we're at 753,000, which is pretty decent, accounting the fact that we're looking at only the Texas area, specifically a couple of DMAs. So for this enhanced section, this is where we're able to enhance the audience by the demographic or day part, or even other things like categories. But if you remember, the income demographics was actually pretty interesting in that Honda over indexes for high income. So let's choose those incomes to apply. And what this does is it will drop our audience counts down to 317,000. So as you can see, we have verified that it's dropped, which makes sense as we're only capturing a portion of the visitors within a certain income group. In our final section, we want to check everything makes sense. So in the audience name section, we want to name it. So we'll name it Honda. We'll call it Houston, Texas, over 90 days with income greater than 75K. Next, we could just verify that the audience we're trying to make is reflects what we are intending and what we learned. So just double check this description area. We want Honda, we want Houston, Texas, Austin, San Antonio, and others within the last 90 days and with certain income. So yes, that makes sense. We could select the destination of our choosing, which platform. I will leave this out for now, but as you can see, we have many options you could choose from. Finally is the delivery options. You could decide to deliver once, or you could deliver over a certain period of time. And then once you're done, you could activate. After that, you will receive an email confirming the activation, and then the certain platform you push to will reach out with this new audience. that pretty much covers it. So now let's go into the next section, which is verifying and proof of our campaign results. Finally, we close the loop with visit stream, and this is a continuous feed of visit events to your locations, so in our case, the different DMAs in Texas, that have been matched back to the media exposure across the platform we push to. This is where we move from insight to outcomes, where we can see attributed visits and turn them into clear KPIs like visitation rate, incremental lift, and even split performances between new versus returning customers. Once you have done that, optimization gets a little bit more practical, and you can shift budget towards the partners, placements, and maybe even the creatives that are actually driving people into stores and not just generating clicks or impressions. And importantly, Visit Stream can be delivered into both buy-side and sell-side platforms, so visits are matched with exposures and show up as attributed results inside each platform's campaign reporting. And as you can see, I took the audiences that we pushed and have resulted back in its visit rate for us to create a baseline and prep for the campaign ahead. The metric I chose here is visit rate, which is the visit devices within our audience divided by the total audience devices. And what we can see is that about 40%, going upwards of 60 and as low as 10% on weekdays, is our typical baseline for visit rate. What's next is waiting, right? So we have our campaign pushed. They're tracking the impressions, and hopefully we can see some visit rate lift going forward into our campaigns. To wrap things up, I want to start as a reminder that advertising keeps evolving, but data integrity and privacy-safe measurement are what makes results credible. Place intelligence metrics was our first foundation, where we learned where demand is happening and how it changes over time. We then moved to activation using the audience discovery dashboard to create audiences and push it to a platform. Finally, we closed the loop with Visit Stream, which allows us to connect exposure to real-world outcomes, so things like attributed visit rates, incremental lift, and possibly even calculating new versus returning customer. The goal is simple, not just reporting what happened, but using it to optimize budget towards what actually drives store traffic. Thanks again, and if anything spoke to you today, feel free to visit our website. It was a pleasure spending time with you today.